Please don't forget subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to get notified of new daily videos.
I never thought I'd trade a cubicle for a coffin, but here I am. My name is Lillie Oakley, and for the last 3 months I've been the night archivist for Conrad Seymour. It sounds prestigious, doesn't it? Archivist. It makes it sound like I'm preserving history. In reality, I'm just trying to survive it. The job description was vague, the pay absurdly generous. Maintenance and cataloging of a private, unconventional collection. Seymour himself was a study in precision, sharp suit, impeccably groomed, eyes that seemed to miss nothing. He interviewed me in a vast, echoing library, barely looking up from a leather-bound tome. When I asked about the collection, he simply said, "My life's work, a testament to certain curiosities." He also mentioned my predecessor, Eric Jacobson, had moved on to other opportunities. The way he said it, though, made it sound more like Jacobson had ceased to exist. My workplace is a soundproofed wing of Seymour's remote estate, deep in the sprawling woods. At dusk, the gates clang shut, and I'm alone with the collection until dawn. No cell service, no internet, just miles of oppressive silence and the faint hum of the estate's ancient generator. The wing itself is a labyrinth of polished wood shelves, glass cases, and shadowed alcoves. It smells of dust, old paper, and something metallic, like ancient blood. Before my first shift, Seymour handed me an antique silver pocket watch. "This," he stated, his voice devoid of emotion, "must always be wound, always. It keeps time, Miss Oakley, and it keeps other things at bay." He also showed me the entrance ritual, a specific pattern of incense smoke and chalked sigils drawn across the main threshold, renewed every night. "It delineates," he explained, "between outside and inside, what is known and what is not." Jacobson left behind his old inventory ledger, a thick, leather-bound volume filled with meticulous, looping script. Tucked between its pages, I found his true legacy, a series of increasingly frantic, handwritten notes, warnings, rules, my actual job description. The first rule, never acknowledge the echoes. If you hear a whisper, a scrape, a call when no one else is here, you ignore it. Completely. Pretend it didn't happen. My first few nights, I dismissed the creaks and groans of the old building. But then came the whispers, barely audible, always just on the edge of my hearing. Sometimes I swear I'd hear my name, soft and beckoning, from the dark corners between shelves. I clench my jaw, focus on the ledger, and don't reply. The incense ritual became a nightly obsession. I'd carefully trace the sigils, watching the chalk dust settle, feeling an odd tension in the air, like the lines were holding back an invisible tide. One evening, as I drew the final line, I noticed an older sigil beneath mine, almost worn away, but still faintly visible. It was subtly different, more intricate. It seemed to have shifted, almost as if the space itself was trying to erase or alter it. The pocket watch is my anchor. I wind it religiously, feeling the tiny gears shift. It has a peculiar, almost imperceptible vibration when it's active, a subtle thrum. If I forget to wind it, even for a moment, the hum stops and the silence in the wing becomes absolute, thick enough to choke on. The air grows heavy, and a cold dread settles in my stomach. The objects around me seem to press in, their shadows elongating, their glass cases glinting ominously. I scramble to wind it, and with a soft click, the thrum returns and the oppressive weight lifts. Jacobson's notes detailed some of the more challenging items. He gave them nicknames, a morbid attempt at familiarity. There's the Lexicon of Whispers, an ancient, leather-bound book without a title, its pages covered in arcane script. Jacobson warned, never read beyond the index, not a single word. My duty is to dust it. One night I found it open to a random page, though I distinctly remembered closing it the night before. I felt a subtle, intrusive pressure in my mind, a phantom sensation of unfamiliar words forming on my tongue. I slammed it shut, heart pounding. Later, I found myself almost muttering something in a language I didn't know, a guttural sound that chilled me to the bone. The memory flask, an ornate decanter of smoky glass, is another one. Only feed it trivial information, never personal memories or crucial data. Seymour himself instructed me to occasionally feed it a slip of paper with a random fact. One night, after making a mental note of a forgotten task, I turned to find the memory flask's stopper slightly ajar. The note I'd scrawled about that task had vanished from my desk. I quickly tore a random article from an old newspaper and shoved it into the decanter, hearing a faint gurgle from within. It made me feel sick. Then there's the chronicle loom. An old, intricately carved loom sits in the center of one chamber. Invisible threads constantly weave themselves into patterns, sometimes shimmering with faint light. Jacobson's rule was stark: never touch the threads when it's active, especially not when they seem to form shapes you recognize. One night, the loom pulsed, and I saw a strand of silver thread weave itself into a pattern that was undeniably my own name. My fingers twitched, an irresistible urge to reach out and feel the texture of my identity. I had to grip the edge of a shelf until my knuckles went white. The shifting orrery is a miniature celestial model with perfectly polished brass rings and rotating planets. Never allow it to reflect your own image or stare at it for too long. I've seen my reflection in its surface, but it's always subtly wrong, eyes too wide, a mouth stretched into a grotesque grin, then it shifts back to normal. The planets sometimes move against their normal orbital patterns, showing impossible conjunctions. Jacobson's final notes were almost illegible. They know when you break a rule, even in thought. They want you to break a rule. The most unsettling entry was just a single, thick black line in the ledger, labeled the silent wing. No description, no rules, nothing. Seymour had only ever said, "Some things are best left uncatalogued." Last night the pocket watch stopped. Not a slow wind down, but an abrupt, dead halt. The thrum vanished. Then all the lights in the wing flickered and died, plunging me into absolute darkness. The silence was bone-deep, broken only by the frantic beat of my own heart. The whispers started immediately, louder now, closer, calling my name, coaxing me. "Lillie, just a little sound. Just one word." My throat constricted. I could feel things moving in the darkness, the rustle of fabric, a soft thump from the direction of the silent wing. My hand instinctively reached for my mouth, stifling a scream. I had to get to the emergency lantern. Every step was agony, the air thick with unseen presences. I could feel cold breath on my neck, hear a soft, wet slurp from somewhere close. The urge to break silence, to beg, to cry out, was almost unbearable. I found the lantern, fumbled with the switch, and with a desperate click it sputtered to life. The beam cut through the black, revealing only empty shelves and the distorted shadows they cast. But as I swung the light towards the silent wing, I saw it, a movement, a shape darker than the darkness, impossibly tall, retreating into the unlit depths. As it vanished, the silver pocket watch in my hand gave a loud, resonant click and began to thrum again. The whispers ceased. The overhead lights flickered back on. I didn't leave last night. I stayed until dawn, huddled, staring at the empty spaces. Seymour arrived this morning, as always. He smiled, a polite, knowing smile. "Everything in order, Miss Oakley?" he asked. I could only nod, my voice still trapped in my throat. I understand now why Eric Jacobson moved on. He didn't leave. He simply stopped being the archivist and became part of the collection himself. The rules aren't for the collection. They're for me, to keep me from becoming the next unlisted item. I'm still here, still winding the watch, still drawing the lines. But I know now I'm not just the archivist anymore. I'm part of the collection too.
If you enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button to like it. And please do subscribe to support the channel.